Hi guys, I'm Chris,
And Mike.
and welcome back to this week's No Limits, a Mitch Rapp podcast. So how you doing this week, Mike?
It's been a good week. I mean, my soccer team won the European Championships. Forza Italia.
They did.
So that was good. But man, how about you? How's the new house? You're just, 2 weeks in to the new house?
Yes, yeah, it's going well. So, I guess I'll just say it here that we had to take a little bit of a break. So I had some little family issues to take care of, but we're back now. And I wanted to thank all those who reached out to me for the kind words. That was very thoughtful. But yeah, I'm back at the house trying to put things together. I'm potting in a different location than our last podcast because I went to go plug in my computer halfway through and proceeded to electrocute myself, which I have the electrician coming next week to address that.
Oh, you do?
So,
Good.
yes,
So
yes.
You're not sitting on a mini fridge next to a sump pump using the plug of the sump pump to plug in your laptop. You're not going to electrocute yourself.
No.
Okay.
I am instead, my computer is sitting on my bed, and I'm sitting on a bench that normally sits at the end of my bed. But a little peel behind the curtain here. A little peel behind the curtain here. Here, I'm going no backrest,
You need some
It'll be
lumbar support. You got to get that lumbar chair.
Yeah, I know. I'm looking for the right chair for my desk. That'll be in the living room. So
Amazon Prime, man. 2 days. Wayfair. You ever use Wayfair?
I have.
Furniture?
I have used.
They're
Wayfair.
pretty good.
They are. I'm just worried of
Pretty good.
buying something online that I haven't sat in.
Right.
But, anyways.
All right, enough about chairs and
our
the
world.
Furman household.
Yes. But no, everybody, we're doing good. And we're back to potting. So thanks for allowing us to take that week off. And we even spread out one of our last podcasts over a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So
You know what else we're back to?
We're back.
Kill Shot. I know you've been talking about Kill Shot for a little while. I know
One
you
of my
like
favorite
it.
books. One of my favorite books.
Awesome. I guess I'll just say it now. A little bit of a hot take, but I sense this is probably the book you and I are going to disagree on the most. Not saying I did not like it. I liked it.
Are you saying you're going to put it on the bottom third of your rap books and I'm going to put it in the top third of my rap books? Is that what you're saying?
I'm thinking that's where we're going to end up.
Wow.
I haven't disclosed my ranking. You haven't disclosed yours, but I get the sense that part 2 next week, this is going to be on opposite ends of our list.
Interesting. I mean, I guess, we're going to talk about all these things and, this book has flaws. I'll say that, but I don't know. I really enjoyed it. I don't know why. I was really trying to pinpoint it down, and I think I'll address some of those points as we dig into the plot. But yeah, it's just maybe I'm a sucker for Paris. I love French scenery, the French food, French fries.
I'm with you, and I gotta say that's part of why I was left wanting quite a bit. In that the descriptions of the city, the people, the locals, I feel like was not the usual Vince style, or it wasn't as detailed,
I'll give you that.
Textured as some of the other locations. And if there's one location I really want to buy into, the way Vince usually sets the scene, I wanted it to be this one. And I just felt in setting and descriptions, it fell a little short. So I didn't have that kind of feel of Paris that I was hoping for, that Vince clearly has done with so many other places, like just Beirut last book, right? Like that might have been his
or
best
like some
example.
Town like a Banderbas,
right? Or even
wherever,
Memorial Day when they're on the run through Southeast Virginia,
right.
Like I felt like I was transported to this middle of nowhere, 3 hours outside of Richmond, Virginia, small town, and knew it better than in this book being in Paris, at all the sites.
Right.
So.
Well, I mean, do you want to just dive right in?
Let's do it.
Keep it going. Okay,
give us the rundown.
I will say this book came out in 2012, right? Mm-hmm. February of 2012. And I thought it was interesting because we got American Assassin in 2010. like in the normal time frame that we got a Vince Flynn book. Almost a year and a half passed. And then later on that year, in November of 2012, we get The Last Man.
Right.
So this book was delayed.
Well, let's address the elephant in the room.
No, I mean, of course.
I don't know about you, but I teared up with the prelude.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I actually did. Vince is talking about his diagnosis. This book was published, shortly after, it seems. You said, what, February 2012 it was published?
Mm-hmm.
After receiving the news that would forever change the trajectory of his life and his family's life. And he was really heartfelt in wanting to thank those who helped him get where he is. And he wanted to show courage, even though I can only imagine how hard that would be to find and dig up after knowing you have a terminal illness. But I mean, just listen to this from the prelude, or not even the prelude, I guess, the acknowledgments. Starting off the book with dedication and acknowledgments, Vince writes, quote, "Instead of facing the scariest moment of your life alone, you find yourself surrounded by people you care about and who genuinely care for you." And he had just so many sentences as beautifully crafted and heartfelt as that one. And just, this book is very important to me for that purpose. I might nitpick some other things in the plot line, but I absolutely understand where Vince and his family were at during the process of getting this book to print.
Yeah, it's hard. Maybe that's why I like it so much. I mean, and then I love Last Man too. Like these two sort of. And I'm wondering do you think Last Man? I would love to know the inner workings of like when they obviously chose to release these two in the same year. When was each one written? After
the
American
draft.
Assassin. The draft. Was he working on Last Man and then he started working on American Assassin and then he just had all these ideas? Or he said he always knew like the backstory of Mitch Rapp from like at least the basis of it. I mean, we could even see it on the pages.
Right.
Then he had a chance to flesh that out. But was it always we're going to immediately follow this up with Kill Shot? I don't. We gotta like. Yeah. I would love to understand that whole gap in that year. Why we didn't get a Vince Lynn book.
And I think that's something that's going to come up as we break down the plot of Kill Shot is the gap between that and Transfer of Power. And we know Vince didn't leave notes and write a lot down. Right. He often made the stories in his mind as he went, and was a master of that practice. So I guess no one will ever know what his plan was for filling that gap with the third book, because this is very clearly a trilogy. Sure. American Assassin, Kill Shot, and then whatever is the bridge to Transfer of Power.
Right.
So I mean, I gotta believe he had a plan or an idea that he wanted to go there, and then knowing it was his last book, The Last Man is almost a masterpiece.
It's very good.
Right, and just a couple of scenes from it stick out to me, and I know we'll get there next month. But it also shows an aging Hurley. Right. I think that was really important to Vince. Instead of rushing through the third part of this trilogy, ending his life by catching up with Mitch in the current world, right? Catching up with Mitch in real life, and Hurley, at the end of his life and towards the end of his days. And man,
and it's also interesting if you think about it, because it isn't I may be mixing this up with Survivor, but doesn't Rapp get final revenge against Louis Gould, or is that not till the Survivor?
I think it blends into the Survivor, but you're right. Louis Gould comes back and plays a big role in Last Man. So it's Vince like trying to wrap up all these things, knowing that this might be his last two books, or whatever. He wants to bring these characters back and say one final thing on them. Maybe that's why this one felt a little rushed to me in terms of the details, knowing The Last Man was that what do you call it, that final opus that he wanted to get out to the world.
But I'm also wondering if like a lot of these things that we're going to nitpick in this podcast and in the next, if we got to see that third book or even a fourth book, whatever, they would be fine. You know,
True.
we only are willing to nitpick them because we don't understand them and we want to know the conclusions of a lot of these things, you know.
Right.
It's like Game of Thrones, right? You know, it's I don't know if you're a Game of Thrones reader, but you know, I want to know how the story ends in George's mind. You know, and you leave it to someone else to do it on the screen and didn't do that good of a job. But anyways, you know, it's like, I don't know. I think that if we had gotten the third book, a lot of these things that would have been, you know, I think it's going to be very hard though. And I almost think that that's why they don't want either why Kyle says he has said he's willing to do it or but he hasn't been allowed to do it. And I do think it would be very hard because you would have to almost study these first two books and then go back and sort of do what we just did for our podcast and then pick up all the threads to carefully place everything that's needed in that book because it has to connect. It's like the linchpin of this entire series, even though it's not needed.
No.
But in order to be a good book, it has to be that linchpin.
It would be, you're right, it would be a real delicate balance. But I think as we see, you know, as we jump into this, we're going to see those opportunities, you know, served up on a silver platter. Like Vince left some nuggets here of where this story could be taken. And so, I think it'd be a hard job. I think somebody would have to prove themselves that they can command this series, and Kyle's done that. So if he or the Flynn estate or whoever is in charge makes that decision, it would be a tough one, but I think it's a challenge I would like to see attempted. For sure.
Definitely. For sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, like we kick off most of our part one podcasts, let me give you the Goodreads and the Amazons. So, just like Rotten Tomatoes, take these with a grain of salt. The Goodreads scores is a solid 4.31, which we were just discussing before the pod. Most of Vince's novels have around a 4.3, except for American Assassin, which has a 4.25. It's actually the lowest rated book on Goodreads.
Fake news. Move on.
Well, it does have 71,000. And Amazon has a 4.6 out of 5, 3,600 reviews. And the summary goes like this. In the years since the CIA trained and then unleashed him, Mitch Rapp has dismantled, killed by untraceable kill, the network of monsters behind the Pan Am Lockerbie terrorist attack. The hunt leads to Paris, where a deadly trap is sprung as the bullets leave Rapp's silenced pistol, followed by the discovery of 9 bodies, including a Libyan oil minister, in one of the city's finest hotels. Washington wants no part of this international crisis, and Rapp is deemed a liability by Stan Hurley, one of his handlers. But as he slips outside their control to operate on his own, it will soon become clear that nothing is more dangerous than a wounded and cornered Mitch Rapp. Ooh, I like that last sentence.
Ooh, last line is good.
It will soon be clear that nothing is more dangerous than a wounded and cornered Mitch Rapp. That's pretty good.
Dude, that's fantastic. And it takes us into the prelude. Like, that captures how Vince wanted to kick off this book, because we see a meeting of the top brass, you know, running the Orion team.
Yeah.
And Doc Lewis is expressing some reservations. We know in American Assassin, he was in Rapp's corner. His psychological profile, his physical profile, and Doc Lewis is the reason Rapp didn't quit. Rapp was sick of Hurley, kind of sick of Kennedy and Stansfield, who he didn't really know that well, but he was sick of the whole program. And Doc Lewis, he plays Jedi mind tricks, and he gets Rapp to stay and take the job and see things through. But here, Lewis is now saying, are there signs that someone like this, who's been so perfect at the top of their game, are so good that they could turn on us? What if they're so intent on rooting out everyone who's evil? Well, guess what? Everybody makes bad decisions. And so what if that person then, this black and white, mindset, then looks at our mistakes as the CIA, right? Because we've made mistakes institutionally.
Right.
Individuals who are good and patriots have made mistakes at certain times. So what if this kind of black and white operative reads that as a target to eliminate and go rogue? Not because Rapp's lost it or hates America or has some grievance, but simply because of he is now the purveyor of justice. And in his mind, what if he wants to dole that out to people on the home front? And
I thought it was very
that.
interesting that Lewis says that, because doesn't eventually Rapp do that with like some of these politicians, like in later books?
But with Stansfield's blessing.
But with Stansfield's blessing or Irene's blessing, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
But I just thought that was funny how, it comes full circle. Rapp, that is actually something that Rapp does eventually do.
Right. I guess at this point in his career, he's only working on this hit list of international terrorists, like the Libyan oil minister, that he's about to take out. And so, yeah, I think it's brilliant for Vince to address what will become Rapp's job, to take out our internal enemies, foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic, yeah.
He's hinting at this now very early on. I think, a year or two he's been operating after his training. So it's really...
It's been a year since the farm.
1 year. Yeah, so he's only been in this whole program a year and 6 months, really, so far.
Right.
And we get some foreshadowing here as well, right off the bat in the prelude, where Vince writes, quote, "At this very moment, he was about to do something very illegal and unsanctioned in a country where he could not afford to make even the slightest mistake. I'm worried about him because he's about to kill a high-ranking official in the capital of one of our closest allies." That right there makes me say, let's go. Let's go. I want it.
And by saying that, it's not going to go well. Like,
right.
It's clearly setting it up for, something. And I just wanted to say, like, maybe one of the reasons why I love this book is because it reminds me a lot of, like, the first Mission Impossible movie. Like, that story with Ethan Hunt where, like, they go in, they have a mission. And obviously I'm jumping ahead, like, past the prelude into this first chapter where we meet up with Mitch, and he's in Paris, and he's about to take down this target, and he has this like bad feeling. He's going to take out this Libyan oil minister who's, obviously did something, gave money to terrorists, whatever. But he's like, all right, he has this feeling, but he goes in and then takes him out, executes him perfectly, and is about to get out of there, and then he hears like the sound, and everything goes to hell.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, I don't know, it reminds me of. And then obviously he then has to run because he gets shot and whatever. But it reminds me of Mission Impossible because it's like sort of like the same thing where they go in, they have this mission, they execute it, and then everyone dies except for obviously Tom Cruise. And then he has to, take away. And then sprinkle it in a little bit of Jason Bourne-esque throughout this entire novel.
Sure.
A little bit of Bourne Supremacy, a little bit of Bourne Identity thrown in here. So I love those two movies. And obviously, there's some tropes taken from that in this book, so maybe that's why I also love this book. But.
Now, let's be clear, though. We are not advocating for casting Tom Cruise as Mitch Rapp.
Oh, no. 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 I think we've already said our casting. I actually like Gerard Butler as a Mitch Rapp.
Yeah, we've been down that road before.
Or Colin Farrell. Yeah.
No, you're right. I agree with your comparison there, and a couple of other one-liners that stick out go to some of the storylines in those books. Like, I'm thinking Bourne. Here it says, quote, "Until he had some answers, his survival instincts told him to do what he was trained to do, operate on his own and under everyone's radar, including the CIA's." But, I mean, Jason Bourne, right. That kicks in when his memory is, missing of all of his training. He operates on his own. He's got to figure out who he is and who's responsible for him. And then, like Stansfield, thinking about Bourne's handlers, it says, "Stansfield's contacts ran deep, and his ability to see 3 moves ahead of his enemies had always made him a formidable foe. Stansfield saw angles and opportunities where others saw chaos, danger, and a problem not worth tackling." Typical storyline in a movie,
right.
And a lot of other series as well, but Vince is pulling it off with characters we love, so I love seeing those storylines here.
So, all right, talking about movies, why haven't they made this Mitch Rapp movie? Like, they made American Assassin. This would have been a perfect movie.
This could be a good one.
Especially with Dylan O'Brien, like, and Tom, or not Tom. Who was Hurley again? Shit.
Michael Keaton.
Michael Keaton, yeah, Michael Keaton.
Oh, yeah. And then Victor. You can cast somebody awesome for a Victor. I know they had a Victor in the last movie. They had a Victor. Maybe that person could come back, but
they killed him.
Like, that's true. That's true.
You could just make another character that. Like,
you can make another character, right? Yeah. Call him Chet. Oh wait, right. That's Victor's real name.
That's Victor's real name. Right.
I guess we'll get there to Victor, but let's talk about the actual scene, like the actual hit.
Yes.
But I agree with you. This would have been a great choice for a movie. I actually think this storyline I might have enjoyed more as a movie than a book. So I think you're onto something there. But this scene would have been cool to see, where Rapp is going after this oil minister, the next on a top secret list, a hit list from Stansfield, Kennedy, and the intelligence folks. And he thinks it's a clean hit. He's rappelling off the side of a hotel, gets onto the balcony, gets in the door, makes a clean shot on the guy, right? Rapp likes to get close for the kill shot, as we see, I think, in chapter 2 or 3?
Yeah, like
kill
we get the title right away. Right away.
Yeah. And he thinks he'll make a clean getaway, and he saves the prostitute, right? Because Libyan oil minister in Paris, obviously, there's a prostitute in the room. Rapp's able to protect her, just kill his guy, about to head out on the balcony, rappel down the rope, and all hell breaks loose. A team of, I think, 5 guys bust in the door, spraying bullets. Rapp quickly assesses they're not trained operatives. They're some sort of hodgepodge group, maybe security personnel of some sort, because they're just spraying bullets, hundreds of rounds. And Rapp ducks behind the bed, is able to evade them, take them all out, couple quick shots. But as he's escaping onto the balcony, about to jump, rappel down the rope, he takes a hit to the shoulder. So he's been shot. Is this, I guess, the first time? Was he shot in American Assassin?
No.
I don't think so. No.
Not the first time he was shot. I guess the first time he was shot was in Executive Power, right? When he gets shot in the ass.
Sure, but in the chronological storyline.
Oh, yeah.
First time he shot in his career.
True. Right. Yeah.
And he's on his own now, because he doesn't know who to trust, who turned on him, who leaked this information, who knew that I was going to hit the oil minister tonight, because they were obviously prepared.
Yeah, I like all the sort of like quick exposition we get in his head, where he's like, like he runs down that list of things you just said, but he's like, oh, I can't think about those right now. I need to deal with these like 5 people. And it's very interesting. We get like sort of the flip version of this attack from Samir's, who's running these goons who end up getting killed. And you know, they've also been watching the Libyan oil minister, and they're trying to catch Rapp, because it's been crazy since the last time we saw him. He's gone on this huge tear, just clipping all these people, and it's like, who is this guy? Like it
right.
reminded me of like the idea of Ghost from the movie. Like Rapp is actually Ghost. Like he's this guy who's been coming in, you know. And Lewis mentions it during the prelude that Rapp wants people to think about me at night. Like he wants these people on this list to think about him potentially, you know, coming for him, and think about his face, or like what is, not what his actual face is, but what his face could be, you know.
Yeah. And that's part of the...
I just love that. But obviously it doesn't sound like a sane person. It doesn't sound like a sane person at all.
Well, no, but I like that it's a little deeper than that, because last book we saw divisions between the leadership, right? Do you support Hurley or do you support Irene? You know, Hurley obviously doesn't like Rapp. He wants to rein him in. He didn't recruit him. He's not military. Well, that point divides them further, in that Hurley, and I think even Kennedy, feel like if these guys know we're coming for them, if they pick up a pattern that there's a super assassin out there who can creep up on them at any time, they're gonna retreat, right? They're gonna hide in their bunkers. They're gonna go behind, you know, security walls. It's gonna be harder for us to get to them if they expect this predictability of a super assassin on the loose. And Rapp's like, hell no, that's what I want. I don't care if it's harder. I'll still get to them, and I get the satisfaction of knowing they're cowering and then they're scared shitless. It's like a drone attack, right?
But the one thing that saves him is the line that he says to Lewis. That's sort of like, instead of being a complete psychopath, right? He says, I want them to feel, I'm not like you, I don't have the exact quote, but I want them to feel something similar to the pain or, the fear that they caused other people.
Right.
And that, in my mind, is retribution.
Right.
By doing that, by making them being scared shitless of this, ghost that's going to come get them, he's, inflicting something similar to what they've done to, millions or thousands of people, whatever.
I think that's when Lewis and Stansfield are like, okay, he's not just crazy.
Right.
He has a rationale of why he wants to operate that way.
Lewis is just like, he's obviously the shrink, so he's just, he even says, like, I feel like for 5 minutes, or I talked to him for a couple hours, and I feel like I know Rapp completely, and then the next 5 hours, I feel like I haven't gained any ground, It's like I went 10 steps forwards, 30 steps back.
Right.
Rapp is an enigma,
He is. Yeah, big time.
But at the same time, he's an open book,
Yep, you're right. You mentioned Samir, so we do spend some time inside the terrorist head, and Samir was like a true zealot.
Oh, very
just
much so.
Very much a hardliner, and he's also rather well trained, but he's kind of in bed with the wrong folks. And there's this really interesting dynamic here going on at the church scene. What'd you think about that?
Well, first of all, why do we even need Samir as a character? Why couldn't it just be Rafik?
Right.
So we get the first mention of, after, obviously, just to recap, after this shootout, everyone sort of goes on the run. Like, we have, Hurley and everyone over the United States are dealing with the fallout of this. We have Rapp on the run, which we're going to talk about, like, some of his scenes on the Seine, and that was kind of cool chapters. And then we get, like, the French are involved, and then we actually, like, dive deep into this terrorist that, and how they're connected with Fournier, who's, the director of the DGSE, or high up at the DGSE.
Yeah, French intelligence.
Yeah, and they have this meeting at the Sacré-Cœur, which is a very beautiful church. And there's this other guy, Max Vega. And you were even saying that you think that there's too many characters in this novel. And I agree with you.
This Max guy, right? Like, he's half...
And we get a whole backstory on him.
Yeah, he's Saudi, but he's also like a Spanish telecommunications millionaire. So he's using all his fortune from his Western educated side to fund terrorism because he identifies very closely with his Saudi father. Is that a necessary character? Like you said, Samir and Rafik Aziz are at these meetings. Why not one or the other? Because, I mean, when Rafik Aziz's name is dropped...
they don't even say Aziz, they just say Rafik.
They just say
his brother Rafik. And you're like, oh shit, that's Rafik Aziz?
Dude, I lost it. I was like, oh shit, I forgot. This is about the scar. We're going back to transfer of power. We're linking, American Assassin to transfer of power. And the hinge is going to be Rafik. And we're going to get this awesome storyline of Rapp going after him. And then it doesn't pan out. Not to spoil part 2 next week, but when Vince name dropped Rafik, I was like out of my mind excited. And he literally just stands in this meeting and then is mentioned once or twice later on in the book and does nothing else.
It's very disappointing. I think even when we did the Transfer of Power episode, we mentioned, like, wait, so do we get this in Killshot? Like, we couldn't remember if we did or not. And we don't.
I thought we get the scar scene. And when his name was not mentioned again, I'm like, oh shit, that's the third book, though. That's what we were talking about.
Yeah, the scene I was thinking about is Rapp's first kill from American Assassin. I was sort of like conflating the two, thinking that like that was Rafik and he somehow got him or whatever. But yeah, like...
No, but that's the third book. That's why we need the trilogy completed.
That's why we need the trilogy. Yeah, I mean, if anything, just to bridge Rafik to, understanding that huge plot line, or like that plot hole that we got, vivid description of in multiple books.
But look at what Vince is doing, right? It's eye candy, if you will, if you know the story and you read it in publication order. Like, I lost my shit when I saw Rafiq's name.
Oh, I did too.
But
it was just his first
just the first name was
first
enough.
name.
I love it. But if you're also a new reader and you're reading
it doesn't
in
spoil it at all.
chronological order, it also sets the seed, because you read this book thinking, okay, that's a random guy in the background. What's going on? But then when Samir
He's
is
the
taken
only
out,
one that lives.
when Max is gone, when Fournier's gone, well, then Rafiq is like, shit, how do I rebuild this network? So if Rafiq were to come up in a Killshot sequel, even for new readers reading in chronological order, they would also have the same, name drop, oh shit, excitement moment. So that's just brilliant by Vince to think of all fans and where they're from. And it makes me want that third book even more.
It for that reason alone, yeah, it's really frustrating.
Man, I love that. I love that. I mean, but what they're talking about at this meeting is that Fournier, the head of French intelligence and Homeland Defense, is actually cutting deals with the terrorists through this Max Vega billionaire guy. What do you think of this concept? Because once it clicked for me, it worked. He's basically buying them off with intelligence, and in return, they're not striking France.
Yeah.
Ugh.
In retrospect, I had to read this chapter like twice. Not the whole chapter, but just like this part to understand. Because I don't think Fournier is like a bad guy. Like, I mean,
he's doing a deal with the devil.
He's not a terrorist. Like, he's padding his pockets, but he does say whatever. Like, he wants, the Republic first, like France first.
True. He's protecting his country.
He's protecting his country.
He may be doing his job well. You're right.
He's not a villain per se. Like, the ultimate villain is, the terrorist and whatever. But not a good dude. We'll say that. But I had to read.
A bad hombre, you might say.
What is he doing? Like, why is he doing that? Is he just doing it for money? Is he a corrupt cop? But
no, protection.
He's corrupt, like in the sense that he's getting his money. But he says that a lot of these DGS people, get their money, and I'm sure the same thing happens in the CIA. But he's doing it for his country, and once that, like you said, once that clicked, I got it. I understand his motives, why this was set up. It's essentially like, I don't know, us aligning with the training the Mujahideen, right?
Right.
And then them turning on us.
Exactly.
To fight the Russians, and then boom, once the Russians are gone, they turn right on us. So
right, we arm them the same way Fournier is giving them the intelligence. They might stay off your back or fight with you for a little while, in the 80s, early 90s, they were with us. But then, like, it never works out for you. And this has to be real life. Like, can you imagine? And I know this is super simple.
I'm sure stuff like this happens all the time.
Right. I was going to take 9/11, but let's take something like maybe the London, underground bombing. The
Sure.
What do they call the metro system there? The tube.
The tube. It's like there's 777 or like.
What if someone in the leadership of ISIS or whatever other group may have been responsible then literally came to an intelligence official through back channels and said, look, we're going to hit the West. It doesn't have to be London. What can you do for me? And we'll move it to Brussels.
Right.
We'll move it to Paris. Right. We'll move it to Berlin. Like, would you take that deal? Like, London doesn't get hit. I guess you're right.
For Queen and Country. For Queen and Country, baby.
Right.
I don't know. I hope it's awful to think about, that.
Is that good? Is that good intelligence work and national defense? Long run, no.
It's
but
not
short
good.
term,
it's not
yes.
For a short term. It's a short term, but it's not good for the long run, because then just allowing that stuff to happen in general just leads to more stuff. Because just like I said, they're going to turn on you eventually.
There's got to be Fourniers out there though making deals with the devil like this.
I mean, like, what is an asset? Like, who are our assets? Like, they're manipulated people that,
right.
I don't know, like, I love the show Homeland, and I love any CIA show where they show you just the insight of what, is obviously hyperbole, but just like trying to being a case officer and
Right.
bringing someone in, making these deals. So I'm sure the Fourniers
Here's
exist.
a different way of thinking about, not to belabor this point, but it's also on a much more micro scale, the same way a group like the Taliban took over so many villages, Pakistan, Afghanistan, the countryside. The people didn't generally support what they were doing, but they would come in and you had to pay the bribe. You had to pay them not to hit, your daughter's wedding, or you had to pay them to not show up at your door and take, your sisters away. And it's like, you can only pay the bribe for so long that they'll stay off your back. But eventually there's going to be that straw that breaks the camel's back, and they're just going to take over your village and terrorize you.
Either you decide not to pay the bribe and they attack you, or you try to attack them and they attack back. So,
or shit gets bad for them, or they're desperate, or they want food, or they want more wives, and they're going to come anyway,
Right.
Yeah. Shit. Vince that's something deep.
It's interesting to think about that whole setup, because I think if you just read through it quickly, you can be like, oh, he's just a corrupt cop, or a corrupt intelligence official. But when you look at it sort of deeper, he's almost a man that doesn't have a choice. That
you're right.
Needs to do this. He's been assigned to do something like this, and he's looking out for himself a little bit, but also looking out for his country. So,
all right, now there are let's get to the good players, because we've got the good cop Neville, which we'll get to, and she is a fantastic.
She's a big
character.
part in the second in the second part, but just getting introduced to her, she's both those chapters were very much like Law and Order esque chapters of her casing this crime scene. We never really gotten that before in a rap novel, which was kind of cool.
The closest I could think about her being this police commander, right, who really deserves to have full authority over the crime scene, but Fournier and his intelligence spooks are sneaking around. For example, they take away the rope that Rapp used,
right?
So he's hiding that from the police, so they'll be not on his tail. I think they might have moved around some shell casings or something. They didn't have much time, but they got the rope, which was the main piece of evidence. Well, you get the sense that Neville would have put the pieces together and realized it was an inside job. She would have realized somebody, the assassin, probably was running away and got shot,
right?
Which means there's another shooter, right? The assassin's not the only one to have gotten away. Another shooter got away, who turns out is the one who killed the 3 other innocent people on his way out the front door of the hotel.
Which is a key clue that Rapp uses to show his innocence. But.
So all this, I love the Law and Order. You're totally right. It also reminded me of Act of Treason and Agent Rivera. Remember the man with the red hat when the motorcade was hit?
I thought you were going to go FBI Roach. It reminds me of
definitely
of
McMahon. Skip
McMahon.
Skip.
Yeah, Roach is the director.
Yep.
Skip McMahon and in Term Limits, right? That's sort of the best McMahon novel we get, where he's at the crime scene where they have the helicopter. Yeah.
Yep. But no, I was thinking a little bit more in terms of the murder mystery. Put the clues together.
With Rivera in the
Agent Rivera, and how good she was at her job. Kind of a no nonsense agent who was moving up the ladder. I get that sense with Neville as well.
Yep. And it's complicated with that she has a past with Fournier, so
relationship. Yep.
But yeah, again, that detail, is it necessary? There's a lot of jam-packed details.
Yeah.
That don't pay off, Just they seem to be there to be there.
You mean the relationship with Fournier?
Yeah,
yeah, I agree with you.
He could just know.
I was gonna say the rope and stuff. I like those details.
No, that's essential, but just because they go into it a couple of different times. And
what if the energy around and the writing and the page space around that relationship was taken out? I would have loved to see one other character flourish. I already think there's too many characters going on. Vince does that a lot, but pulls it off, right? Readers don't often get lost in his works, even though there may be these third-party kind of characters floating about. Here, it's a little too much. But one of those characters, I think, deserved more time. De Fleury, the Monsignor, the priest,
yes,
who's secretly eavesdropping on this meeting.
That was
he's
cool.
thinking
His backstory was really cool.
His backstory was awesome, but he's thinking as the rector of the church, I'll let this intelligence guy use the building for meetings, and that's my way of giving back, right? To protecting the country, is letting the intelligence folks have secret meetings that no one will find out about because they're the basement of my church. But then when he listens to the conversation
in the confessional,
he goes, he takes the stairs, he goes to the confessional, and he knows there's this one confessional near, I guess, an air duct or something that you could listen into the conversations in the basement. So freaking awesome.
Well, and this guy was a G because, like, Vince even says that during World War II, right, all these Nazis that were Catholic, right, would come to him and give confessions, and he would be a good priest, hear the confessions, and then immediately turn around and sell those secrets.
He'd rat him out
to the resistance.
Yep.
That was awesome. That priest was a G. I would just love a whole book about that priest.
He is one of the.
Like, you could take that priest and make an entire book about, like, his life during World War II and stuff like that. That'd be sick.
You can have a whole series about him. Yeah.
Like Father Brown.
Yes. There's a couple of paragraphs of how he very quickly rationalized what he did.
Yes.
You know, both as a priest, but also needing to turn in the Nazis and then later the communists and now the jihadis. And that's his way of protecting the homeland and standing up for basically what's right.
He was a cool side character. Yeah.
Awesome character. He comes back in a really minor way in the second half.
Very minor.
Yeah. I was hoping to get more. So.
Yeah.
Hey, Rapp's floating on the river though this whole time.
Yeah, I wanted to get to
dead.
that. I wanted to get to that. We get this pretty cool scene where, like, you know, he is able to escape, like, the shooting of him when he gets out of the window, and then he runs to the Seine and is sitting on this bridge, right? Because there's a bunch of bridges in Paris,
right?
And he uses this med kit, and just the description into this med kit, and as I'm reading it, I can see it, and how he's injecting each of the three things, and, you know, shoving gauze in, and then, you know, injecting the super glue, and then injecting like this, or, you know, I'm probably getting out of order, but I don't know. It was very good writing because I could just it fell off the page into my mind.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
No, I'm with you. While I was hoping for more detail on, like, Sacré-Cœur and the Sacred Heart Church.
Right, we got it with the medkit. We got it with the medkit.
Or the bridge, right? I'm hoping for more detail, like the bridges of Paris, so beautiful, and these river walkways and everything.
Yeah, there are locks really cool on it, right, that are going to make it fall off. But
right. But the detail was the powder going into this bullet wound and how it's coagulating the blood and then all this. And he even, I think, like, drops the wrappers into the river, knowing they'll get washed downstream and won't be evidence. Away.
Yeah.
So the details there, I guess I really like that too, but hoping you could balance the detail. But that was really awesome. Like, I wish we had someone who is a paramedic or trained in first aid, because I guess Vince got it right of how you patch up an emergency bullet wound.
Now they have this pretty cool stuff that it's these expanding, almost like Mentos. They're a little bit smaller than Mentos, right?
Jeez.
That they come inside. They're like half the size of a Mento, but they come inside a large syringe, and what you do is you shove that syringe into the bullet wound, shoot all these Mentos in. I'm calling them Mentos, but they're like antibiotic pods.
That's crazy.
That as soon as they hit liquid, they expand. Kind of like when you would, as a kid, you would take like the straw wrapper and, like, make it grow. Did you ever do that as a kid at, like, a restaurant or whatever?
No. What do you wet it and then?
Oh, like if you take this is geeky I am, I guess. You never took your straw wrapper, scrunched it up or folded it in half, and then you drop water on it, and then it kind of expands like a worm.
Okay, I can see that. I would usually peel off one end and then blow the straw wrapper at my brother.
You were one of those.
That's what
guys.
I would do with it.
But anyways, like,
I wouldn't do the science experiment. I would try to piss somebody off for a joke, for a laugh.
Yeah, but these pellets, like, they expand when they hit water, and they have, like, antibiotics on them. They're pretty cool. But yeah, like, back in the day, Mitch is using super glue.
Right. Which we're gonna assume Vince got right, like all the other details he's gotten right. He makes it. Rapp. Oh, he shoots up that locker room. He's
he
like, oh,
like
this looks like a good
swims
place
2
to get
miles,
out-
right?
Get out of the river. Yeah.
And then goes in this locker room, like takes a hot shower,
Almost
gets
dies
some
of
candy
hypothermia.
bars. Yeah, almost dies.
He gets the candy bars from the
Like
vending machine.
the
you're right.
descriptions again, like you said, would have loved a better description of Sacre-Cœur or Paris in general, but we get a great description of this locker room.
Yeah.
Great description of this locker
And
room.
each lock that he shoots off,
Right.
like which one he takes the uniform from, which locker
Right.
he takes something else from, wants it just to look like a robbery. I mean, I guess it's all details about his escape, which
It is.
I do like seeing the aftermath.
In the moment,
how-
like I loved
did
it.
they
I was
get
thinking
away?
it.
Yeah.
But-
Yeah.
Yeah, so he gets away and then he has to deal with he's supposed to have a date after this hit, with Greta. And we get Greta coming back from American Assassin. What do you think about her appearance?
Yeah. This is your first phone call. He's not going to check in with Kennedy. He's not
No.
going to think about the bullet wound. It's like, oh shit, I'm supposed to meet Greta. I'm going to give her a buzz.
Because I got a bullet hole in my arm, I can't meet with you, honey. Like let's reschedule our cup of tea in the morning, and because they were supposed to go to like Switzerland or something and ski.
Yeah. Though she picks up on it and ultimately, without much friction, is willing to come to Paris.
Yeah.
She understands his job.
Yeah, when she comes to Paris, like even though she puts like 2 and 2 together almost immediately after like addressing his wounds, she's like, wait, you were involved with Paris, like what happened in Paris the other night? He's like, yes, and she takes it pretty good. Like,
yeah,
Anna wouldn't have done that.
Oh no, not the DC
Anna
liberal news reporter.
Anna would not have acted like that. Yeah, even at the sight of a gun wound, I don't know if she would have like her first instinct would be to address the wound.
Greta's an Olmeyer. Come on now,
Yeah,
those Olmeyers, they got some tough skin. They know what's going on. How cool would DeFleury, the priest, and Olmeyer meeting up and/or having some history? Like,
that'd be sick.
all these little tangents I want to become fully fleshed stories.
It's headcanon. I love headcanon. It's awesome.
Absolutely. And imagine fan fiction. That would be kind of cool.
Yeah. We need some Mitch Rapp fan fiction.
That'd be awesome. I'd write the priest would be my character.
I'd write just a one-off story about like in between one of these marks of the list, a week with Greta. Like I want to flesh out Greta. I feel like that was going to be the third thing. We're gonna if you had to pick like the couple things to address in the third book, it's 1, Rafik,
right?
It's 2, Victor, and how that concludes. And then 3, it's Greta. And like, where is she? Does she die? Does she betray Rapp?
Right.
Do they amicably, go are their separate ways?
Can you imagine if in some way that book or a later book addresses term limits? Even if it's just a name drop of like, or like
term
a
limits
newspaper.
happens in between kill shot and transfer of power, right? So like Rapp just picking up a newspaper.
Imagine him somewhere where he, because of whatever happened in that in between, he can't get involved. He does have to check himself and like stay off the grid, but he sees reports of the Speaker of the House assassinated.
Right.
Or
Irene like sends him a message saying, I can't talk right now. Like, shit, I'm dealing with something with whatever, and you would know if you read the book like what she's dealing with, right?
Imagine she's like, I'm headed for a meeting on the Hill with the Speaker of the House, Bassett. I think that was his name. And then it's like, oh shit, that's the Speaker who's gonna get hit. Like, is Kennedy there? Is she like on the way to the meeting? Or
yeah, that would be cool.
And then imagine somehow, like maybe Rapp is off somewhere and he can't get involved, like in Minnesota, and he happens to just be like checking out at like, I don't know, a fucking coffee shop, and some guy at the coffee shop is running for Congress and he's campaigning, and it's the O'Rourke character,
right?
Or just something random like that where they run into each other tangentially. I'd love it.
Or at the final scene could be that baseball game that he went to with Michael O'Rourke.
Yes, and that's where he meets Coleman. Yes,
Right.
that could be like the epilogue.
That could be the epilogue, and setting everything up.
Oh my goodness.
See, like we just written like 2/3 of the book right here.
You're so right. Oh man, I got to come back to my priest though, because I love this guy.
Do it.
He could be in the book we've also talked about wanting Stan Hurley in Beirut or somewhere else. Iron Curtain with Stansfield and Kennedy's father. Like, what if De Fleury is like the priest that Kennedy's father, when he's ambassador, is going to confession with, and he's like a local priest at a church somewhere, whether it's Beirut or another posting. Like maybe Kennedy's father was posted.
It seems
elsewhere.
like this priest has been stationed at Sacre-Cœur for a long time, though.
Yeah. Well, come on. Kennedy's father could absolutely have involvement in Paris.
I could see if both of them are like stationed in France for a little bit and they go see this priest, that would be sick.
Right.
What I think is interesting is that every time I feel like we get mentioned Hurley in these novels, they mention like he's from the Far East or like some things about him in the Far East. I want to see, that's another thing, like Hurley's adventures in the Far East.
Yeah. Well, I think we should take all of the Hurley and Stansfield nuggets and do a pod on that.
Oh, it's coming. It's in the works, Mike.
Guys, that's coming. As
it's
these
probably going to be our
out.
July bonus pod,
right?
Where we after we finish this book,
because when we pick back up, Stansfield's dead. He died rather early on in the series. I think third option or executive power, or separation. Maybe separation. Power.
It's at the beginning of one of the two where we get the funeral.
So we'll have to do a tribute. And then Hurley, soon with The Last Man and Survivor.
Right. So.
All right, well, what do we need to wrap up here? I think maybe just how Victor, we get some backstory, and Stan Hurley are sent after Rapp. Stansfield does greenlight bringing him in. Rapp, as of now, is involved in this, I think, 9-person homicide in Paris.
Right.
And so Hurley's and Victor gotta bring him in, whatever it takes, because right now he's a loose cannon that could set off some pretty bad international, a shitstorm. And Hurley and Victor are given basically the green light to bring him in, and if he refuses, take him.
Take him out. Yeah, so I guess just to address it, what they think, what Irene thinks, what Stansfield thinks, we get a couple different meetings with them and various people, but they think Rapp went rogue. Something happened. He killed a bunch of people, even though, and they mentioned Rob Ridley again, the advance team, who Stansfield said he's, there's no reason that Rob should have not missed the fact that this guy had bodyguards. Because in the papers, it's saying that these 4 people that got killed were bodyguards. But yeah, like they think Rapp fucked up, and then it's not until later that Rapp finally calls Irene after meeting with Greta, and obviously we learned about all of what happened. But he calls Irene because he thinks he can trust her, and she relays information to Stansfield, and Stansfield's like, oh shit, it was a setup, and then things start clicking in his head like, we have a leak. Mm-hmm. Who could it be? And then previously, just before that, we've had this other side plot, which kind of unnecessary, kind of, just talking about plots. There's like 7 different plots going on. Like we have 3, like normally it's like 1, 2, 3, like locations. Mm-hmm. In this, it's Rapp, it's Hurley, it's Stansfield and Irene, it's Fournier, it's
Neville, the police.
Neville, yeah, and then we have Cook, and the final one is Paul Cook and the Secretary
CIA
of State.
People.
Yes,
and the Secretary of State. Oh boy.
Yeah, we got a couple of scenes for him, and then this deputy director of the CIA, who the CIA directorship is currently vacant, is a lackey of the State Department and starts spying on Stansfield.
Yep.
So all this is culminated with, like you said, Victor and Hurley being sent over there, and then eventually, once Stansfield realizes that, maybe Rapp was set up, he sends Irene and Doc Lewis over there. But before we get to that, final chapter of this revelation that maybe maybe Rapp didn't do this. We get Victor's backstory. I just wanted to comment before we signed off here. What did you think of that?
Do you want to save that for next time? Because the second half of this book is almost a Victor story. Like, there's a lot of Victor.
Yeah.
What do you think? That's fine. I think we're hitting on almost an hour. What if we kick it off with that?
Yeah, that's good. I think that's good. We'll start with the Victor backstory.
It's a good story.
That was a really cool chapter that we get.
Yeah. Though you know what happens when we get a backstory on a character. They going to die.
Most likely they're going to die.
That's so Flynn. Like,
but he doesn't die. But he doesn't die.
Thou shalt kill a character after creating a long backstory.
Yeah. No. So I guess just to wrap up here, like, who are your winners and losers of the first half?
Yeah, I think just to start negative so I can end positive. I think a jumble of characters is a bit detracting or distracting from the story. The same way there's too many side plots and goings on that aren't going to shape up in the second half to be that central to understanding the narrative and what's going on. So almost a case of doing a little too much. And here's a little theory about that. I could be completely off the mark and hope this isn't insensitive, but I just wonder if Vince had so many people he wanted to name drop personally, he needed a character named after them so he could just drop a bunch of names into this book.
Could be.
To write people in his life into the story. Totally just going off with that one. Who knows? But it was just so many characters coming at us. I couldn't keep up with it. But I think a big winner here in terms of a good character that I would have liked more of is Neville and the priest. And Rafik name drop. I think really small, subtle things are done so well. I just wanted more of them. So this balance of expanding upon maybe not the right things, at least in my mind as a reader, but the ones that were dropped for us, little hints of the priest in the confessional and his backstory, Neville being really good at her job, Law and Order style, put the pieces together to solve the crime. I really liked. So a lot of little details, a lot of little breadcrumbs. Some of them have big payoffs in the second half. I thought that was masterfully done.
Right. I agree with everything you said. I think my winner would have to be Greta. Like, I think she's Rapp's best partner. Because if we go through all of his partners, right? Anna, we don't have to go down that route. Like, Anna
I'm a
is flawed.
Fan. I'm a Donatella.
Donatella is batshit fucking crazy, dude. She Absolutely. Is crazy. She Absolutely. Is crazy.
She's crazy. I like it.
Claudia tried to killed Rapp's wife and unborn child. So, Greta's my winner. Greta is my winner. Greta is my winner.
I'll give it to you.
She's gorgeous.
Absolutely.
She doesn't give Rapp shit for being potentially involved in 9 homicides. She takes care of him. She has a grandfather who's very smart and wealthy. She knows how to ski. I'm a Greta fan. I'm really. It's really unfortunate we didn't get to see the conclusion of the Greta story.
You like that accent, don't you?
Not even like a mention of Greta in later books. Come on, Kyle.
That's true.
Kyle, if you've listened to this end of the episode, please wrap up the Greta story at least.
He wants to. He brought Greta up to us a few times when we spoke.
I know
to him.
he did. But
I remember him saying, "What about Greta?" and throwing.
Yeah,
his
I do
hands
remember
up.
that. I do remember that. That's funny. But all right,
yeah,
well, that was a good
I'm
pod.
With you. She was great. Yeah, good pod. I feel like this one we analyzed the story and the themes a bit deeper as opposed to just recapturing the plot. So well done. Good themes you pulled out there, Chris.
Thank you, sir. And next time we will be wrapping up Kill Shot Part 2, giving you our ratings, and of course our cover discussion, which you didn't mention this, Mike, but Vince makes a tribute to a dedication to Janine Lee for another great cover.
For the cover, yes. This is going to be a good one to talk about.
I like Janine Lee because this is a pretty cool cover. Because it doesn't have that many, but the one with the Eiffel Tower is a pretty cool cover.
Janine Lee definitely did not have a say on cover C. I can tell you that much.
I really hope so, because if not, I'm not gonna like. I don't like Janine Lee, but just if Vince is dedicating it to her, then she didn't have a hand in cover 6.
That's kind of cool. A dedication to a cover artist. That's fly. I like that.
That is cool. Like you finally like shouting someone out. That's cool.
I like it.
All right, we have to thank our patrons, including our special operator Sherry F., our special agents George, Matt, Dawn, Dennis, Peggy, Catherine, Ray, Bridget, Jeff, and Mark. Please subscribe, rate, and review using your favorite podcasting platform. 5 stars on Apple Podcast. You can find us online at mitchrappod.com or using our Twitter or Instagram, which hasn't been active for a while, but I'm going to get back on that this week, at mitchrappod. And as always, just let Mitch be Mitch.
We made it a whole hour, and you did not electrocute yourself.
Well
done.
I didn't die. That's good.
That's a
That
positive.
should be. Is that the goal of every podcast? Not to die?